We are continuing to track a developing story. Cuts are coming to Toledo's Jeep plant and its suppliers.
As we have reported, more than 1,300 workers will be hit by these layoffs. Tonight, we are hearing from one man among hundreds scrambling to figure out what comes next.
Hey everyone, today we're looking at a situation that's been unfolding in Toledo. Major layoffs at the Jeep plant. This story is about more than just job cuts, and it's a snapshot of the challenges facing the auto industry and thousands of workers. So we're going to break down what's happening here and why it's a part of a larger trend. But lately, I've been carrying a lot of stories about layoffs happening in the auto sector. Myself and others have known this would happen, so it comes at no surprise to see many being sent home as a result of a full swing, an earthquake, or a complete tsunami across an entire industry. Was it the EV mandate? Was it the pandemic? Was it high inflation and high interest rates? Was it the green initiative? We don't know. All I know is people are being displaced at an alarming rate in this industry, and I'm calling it the layoff bloodbath. Before we dive in, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and if you have to leave before the end of this particular episode, please leave a thumbs up. The algorithm will really appreciate it. Since lately YouTube have been shadow banning my videos, the views have dropped tremendously, and it is much worse than before. But you know, the show must go on because this is something that is happening, and everyone needs to know exactly how we are affected in this particular industry. It's happening all across multiple other industry, but this one is dear to my heart and so many others. So here's a quick background. Just last week, or at the time of recording this particular episode, the Jeep plant in Toledo, along with its suppliers, announced that over 1,300 workers will be laid off, and this includes about 1,100 workers at Jeep itself and another 210 at Mobis, which is a major supplier for Stellantis. For those who've put years into this particular job, some over a decade, this is a huge hit. So we're going to go into our feature video. Take a look at this.
We are continuing to track a developing story. Cuts are coming to Toledo's Jeep plant and its suppliers.
As we have reported, more than 1,300 workers will be hit by these layoffs. Tonight, we are hearing from one man among hundreds scrambling to figure out what comes next.
I mean, it's family to me. It's been my family for the last, 12 years almost.
For the last decade, Paul Ripple has worked for Mobis on Stickney Avenue in Toledo. On November 8th, he and his fellow employees got the notice. Come January, more than 1,100 workers would lose their job at the Jeep plant, and 210 Mobis workers would be permanently laid off.
I was mowing the grass. I came in one day and I saw the text message, and there was a warn notice, and I was like, I just felt my heart drop.
He says losing his job will be detrimental to his family and finances.
4 weeks of sub pay, and then you're completely done. It took me and my wife a long time to save up money. Now we're at this great point, and now for me, I might have to start over again.
Bruce Baumhauer, vice president for UAW Local 12, says the announcement came as no surprise. With the 11 plants under Local 12, about 8 have Jeep as their only customer.
And so when Jeep's down, they're down. So this is going to trickle through this community like crazy.
Ripple says it's been a nightmare.
They're devastated. They're scared. Me like them. I've cried. I haven't slept in days. It's like this is the only thing that's been on my mind.
And at this time, he says he hasn't heard anything else from Mobis.
They've all been quiet. We don't really know anything. We're just in the dark, just waiting for any kind of sign.
Baumhauer says no matter what happens, the union is going to do what it can to help soften the blow. However,
but our bigger goal is to get this turned around, get Jeep selling again, get Gladiator selling again, and get everybody back to work.
Was Laura Sandlin reporting. In 2023, Mobis reported a new electric vehicle plant would be opened with production initially set to start this past August. At this time, production has not started. Baumhauer says he hopes it opens in the new year and laid off workers can pick up a new position there.
So getting the news by text, because we live in the world of instant messaging and social media, and just like that, years of stability gone in an instant. He's now facing the stress of rethinking his entire financial future. And it's not just him. So many families around Toledo are in the very same spot right now. And this layoff isn't isolated. It's hitting Toledo hard. Jeep is a huge part of this particular community. And 8 out of 11 plants in the area rely on Jeep orders. So when Jeep production actually stalls, it sends shockwaves throughout the entire local economy. A lot of other businesses will actually be affected. But even with some warning, the reality hits hard. Now, the union is stepping in to try to soften the blow, but ultimately they're in a tough spot right now. They need Jeep sales to recover, and that is to get workers back on the line, which is barely going to happen as long as this economic recession that we're going through currently keep happening. But here's where it actually gets really tricky. Demand for EVs in the US isn't quite where automakers has hoped for, and even the government. So there's a bit of a standoff between policy pushing EVs and consumer preferences are still leaning towards traditional and hybrid models. And Jeep's new Gladiator and other SUVs are still in demand, but EV production is taking resources and focus, especially with companies like Stellantis investing billions into new EV plants, and they're not going to be ready anytime soon.
To track layoffs set to hit Toledo's Jeep plant. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Thursday. I'm Jeff Smith. Kaylee Marentet is off tonight. More than 1,100 workers are set to lose their jobs at the Toledo Assembly Complex in the new year. That includes people on both the Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator lines. Stellantis says those cuts will begin as early as January 5th of 2025. With that, local Jeep dealerships are reacting to the news tonight. And Steve Iwanicki spoke with an owner of a dealership in Monroe. So, Steve, what did he have to say?
Well, Jeff, the dealership owner that I spoke to told me that the announcement of those upcoming cuts adds to an already long list of frustrations in sales that they've had this year. So now their focus shifts to the future.
Oh, this is definitely the worst year we've had in a long time.
Ralph Mahalik Jr. is the owner of the Jeep Superstore in Monroe. He says a large part of why sales for Gladiators and Wranglers have slowed is due to interest rates.
Higher interest rates. When I've got, 6 Stellantis stores and pick a number, $60 million worth of cars, and interest rates double, that's very costly to me.
Stellantis itself has seen a sharp decline in Gladiator sales. At this point in the year in 2022, there were 60,000 cars sold. Then only 41,000 sold at this time last year. Now sales are down again this year, with just 33,000 Gladiators sold so far. But Mahalik says not only do economic factors play a role in lower sales, but also the no-show of a Gladiator hybrid.
When is the Gladiator hybrid coming out? Because there was supposed to be a Gladiator hybrid coming, and it just seems like I haven't gotten notification from anybody when it's coming.
UAW Local 12 President Bruce Baumhauer says a hybrid should have been here by now.
It's supposed to be, by now, it was supposed to be switched over to a hybrid, where it has gas.
So to make up for the low sales, Mahalik says Stellantis is giving dealerships like his a reason to sell more.
They have to sell a bunch of EVs and hybrids in 2025. So they pretty much have a gun to their head to, give us the incentives we need so we can push all these vehicles out to consumers and let them start enjoying them.
Incentives such as new content standards and lower price.
Let me pause right there. So it's basically a 50% drop in sales in the last 2 years. And another layer to this story is the competition, especially from companies in Asia and Europe and Japan. For example, I'm trying to say is that they have a lot unique stance on. They had a unique stance against EVs, and while they pioneered the first mass market electric vehicle, which was the Nissan Leaf, they've actually been slow to push electric vehicle adoption domestically. In Japan, hybrids remain very, very popular, particularly because they work better in areas with limited charging infrastructure. And you'll see Jeep was very, very slow, or they are a non-starter where hybrids are concerned. So that should have been a transition. Hence, my mandate from day one on my channel, and I've been voicing because of my vast experience working at the dealership level, is benchmarking bench practices. But the older heads like myself who understands the business, we're no longer working in the business, so we can stay on the outside, still look in and still highlight all the problems that they're facing, but they won't listen. And then there's the competition from China, where EV manufacturing costs are very, very low. Chinese automakers are flooding the market with affordable EVs. BYD comes to mind. For US-based companies, this means cutting costs, which unfortunately often leads to layoffs and production slowdown. And it is happening. Let's finish up this video and come back.
Prices on different models, which Mahalik says will hopefully keep the lights on in the plant.
We can, get all these UAW guys and gals back to work, gainfully employed and having fun.
Now, the Fed did lower interest rates today, and Mahalik is staying optimistic. However, I did speak with one employee from the Toledo plant that wished to remain anonymous, and they told me that they are worried about their future and if plants will move out of the country. And they also told me in their 11 years working at the plant, they have, they've said, quote, they've never seen it this bad. Reporting in North Toledo, Steve Iwanek, WTOL 11.
So what we're seeing here is part of a bigger issue. The auto companies are stuck trying to figure out how to balance electric vehicle production with ongoing demand for traditional models. But there is no demand for traditional models right now because the prices are just too high. And for the workers caught in the middle, it's a tough reality. But we all know new car sales are dependent on the economy. And here's a little bit of the connection. In a dealership, parts and service is dependent on new car sales. Parts do their budget to incorporate service of new car, or warranty parts, service maintenance, and some pre-delivery sales. New car sales is dependent on the economy through fiscal policies like banking lending rates and inflation, which is controlled by the finance ministry or the central bank in whatever country you are. So when the cost of borrowing is too expensive, car sales actually tanks. And the service department, I forgot to mention that the service department, they depend on throughput through their garage. So when the president or prime minister makes an announcement which is not allocated for, then the finance ministry has to create a supplemental budget, and the EV rebate comes to mind. So this was done to encourage early EV adoption, but that money has also run out because there's no way to actually gather those funds back unless you're going to do it through additional taxes or supplemental taxes. So the transition to electric vehicles driven by policies that prioritize zero emissions, that's the word I was trying to look for, zero emission, net zero, it has come with the harsh trade-offs. Our policymakers pushing for an EV future may need to take a closer look at the current job losses and the economic disruptions. It's really, really sad. So that's where things actually stand right now. We've got a plant in Toledo laying off over 1,300 workers, all due to a combination of economic pressures, EV market shifts, and a tough global competition happening. Well, mostly getting their asses kicked by China, who is killing the EV market right now. Now we will live to see abandoned factories and ghost towns popping up around. You ever wonder, sometimes you're watching those movies and you will see all these abandoned factory either near a seaside or in the middle of a ghost town? That is basically where we're heading, living in this current reality. And they had so many jobs linked around them now, and so do families who actually depend on those jobs. The workers affected are facing an uncertain future, and for some, it's going to actually mean starting entirely all over again. We'll keep following this and other stories to see if the promised new jobs at the Mobis EV plant eventually come true. But right now, the actual impact on these families and on Toledo's economy is immediate and will be significant. Do you see EVs being worth this upheaval happening right now? Job losses continue. I call it the global layoff bloodbath. Or is it time to rethink the approach? Thank you all for watching. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Party Manager Guide. Please smash that like button on your way out. It'll only take you 1.5 seconds to do so. Until next time.